Hi guys, I wanted to talk about my Faceup supplies and materials I use today. So this my Faceup things. This container contains all the like wet things, the paints, the gloss. This little box here contains all the dry stuff like pastels, eyelashes, brushes, makeup powders and all that. This bunch, the box on top is actually empty, it's just to hold the box below closed. This box holds my door heads, the one that I'm working on, and the one below is where I keep the MSC and stuff. The glove is for me to wear on my left hand when I hold my door head, and then I'll spray the MSC by holding the can on my right hand. I also have a respirator that I keep on the side here. Yep. Yeah, it's just a 3M respirator. And behind it there's also this container that has like a brush and some Q-tips. And also I used to put my isopropyl alcohol here to remove face-ups. So these are basically like the prep steps for face-ups. So that's how I organize the containers. Then we move on to this, which is the next step, which is where all the powdery things come in. So I'll talk a bit more about this in a while. And this is where I keep the paper. I use this as a base when I do all my face-ups. It's just a random bunch of papers. I have no idea what this is. And this is where all the wet things are. So like watercolor paints, palettes, gloss, an empty glass bottle for me to put water in, and so on. And this is where the doll heads are. So like I said, this box is empty. And this is just an old doll shipping box that I have. So this is Tones, whose gloss is currently drying, and behind there is Dennis, who has been waiting for me to remove his face up. Or rather, yeah, remove the remnants of his old face up properly for a while. Okay, so this is how my desk is usually set up. I have my laptop in front of me, usually set to some Pinterest page for all my inspirations. The mouse is there, and then my bottle of water is here, and I'll start off with a clean and empty desk. And then usually I'll start off with this, which is the powder stuff. So inside it, you can see I have pastels. There's actually another box underneath this, so there's 6 boxes. Bunch of brush, some magic sponge, bunch of eyelashes, more eyelashes, and mica powder. So this is the first box, and I'll show you how I lay it out. So I'll start off with the base, which is a stack of papers. Actually, it could just be any blank paper, but I happen to have a stack. So this has a bunch of lines tested from the previous face-up. Sometimes I tear it off to use a new page, sometimes I don't. It really depends, so it doesn't really matter. I'll usually put my doll head here, and then I'll lay out all my pastels. That's about all I need usually at the start of a face-up, so I'll just leave this box at the side. Yep, so this is how my face-up table would typically be laid out. Okay, so this is how it would usually look like. I have Dennis here just to show you what it would be like. He's not actually ready for face-up. But when I do start a face-up, usually the doll head will have already been primed with MSC, so it will have been clean. And you can check out my video on how I remove face-ups. But for MSC, I'll usually spray him. I'll just spray the doll with 3 layers of MSC first. So 1 layer of MSC, wait for 15 minutes, another layer, 15 minutes, and 1 more layer. And then after another 15 minutes, that's when I'll start. So I'm going to talk about pastels now. As you can see, on this side I have some Rembrandt pastels, two of them actually. This peach and crimson rose. I think rose madder are from Winsor and Newton. Sorry. Yeah. And then the pastels here, and actually most of this you can see on the box is from Schmidt. I only have two Rembrandt pastels because I don't find them to be very soft. They were a bit hard and flaky, and I don't really like how they come off on the brush. So if you see, most of my pastels here, these are Schmidt, and these two are Winsor and Newton, a black and a pink. And then these are also Schmidt. So I do have some like yellow, violet, vermilion, I think, and then a bunch of blues for under the eye area. And then these are my brushes and a very stubbly needle eraser. So you may notice that here I really just have brushes. I don't have a penknife or anything. That's because I use Schmidt, and the pastels are soft enough that I could just touch it with a brush and it would come off. Okay, so you can see here that I have a bunch of different brushes. Okay, I just took out the big one so you can see what's going on with the smaller brushes first. I use almost every single one of these brushes in one Faceup. So I'm not sure how other people do it, but this is just my own preference. I don't like to mix brush colors between shades. Sorry, that made no sense. I don't like to mix my brushes between different shades of colors. Yeah. So usually I'll start off with eyebrows, and that's done with either one of these two brushes. So you can see that actually these are the same brushes, but one of them is this is the older one and this is the newer one. So the newer one has like straighter flat hairs, and I use that for eyebrows, and this I use for any dark eyeshadow they have. And I have the same size brush but in red. So these are for any like red based blushing, which is usually around the eyes as well. And there's a slightly larger brush that I have for like beige. You can tell from the brush hair colors, this is for like beige things, and like sometimes the blush on the cheeks. I use this to apply. So these are all the flat head brushes that are kind of just for application. And then we have these two brushes, which are you can see they're round headed. They're different size just because I took whatever brushes I already have, and I didn't really buy any new ones for the round headed brushes. But you can see this here is used for blending out reds, and this, sorry, I think I took the wrong brush. This is actually for blending out blues. This here is for blending out like blacks, browns, darker colors basically. You can see that there are three brushes that are round headed, and I use them for various blending. So after doing more precise shapes with these brushes, sometimes they need to be blended out, and I use these round headed brushes for it. So for the blue, I actually only use this round headed brush. You can see that there's no blue here. That's because generally for blues it's not precision, so that's why this small brush here is actually the applicator brush in a way. Yeah. And the last tiny brush here is this very thin brush. I bought it, I think I wanted to use it to draw lines, which is kind of a joke because it's not that thin. But I ended up not using it for that purpose, and I just use it to basically when I need pastels in a very small concentrated area, I just kind of use the tip to like dot the pastels in. So that's what this brush is used for. So these are all the small brushes, flat head, round heads, and this tiny little one. And then for the bigger brushes, they kind of follow a similar theory, so let me just group them. So for darker colors, I don't actually have a lot of blending brushes. This is a big blending brush for anything that's like general blushing, beige, peach, rosy blush on the cheeks. So this is the one that I use. Then there is this one, which is like similar to the one previously, but I don't use it as often, so it has less pastels stuck on it. And I use it mostly just to like blend a lighter version of things, or sometimes to flick away extra pastels. This brush is a flathead brush. I didn't really buy it specifically for this purpose. Most of my brushes are really just reused brushes from when I had art. And then this is stiffer. Yeah, so I use it to flick away any excess, and also yeah, just for generally flicking away excess. And this, which has sort of a green head, is used for blending out the blues. So I forgot to mention things I use for erasing. So the magic sponge, I generally just use it to erase things when I don't want to create a harsh line. An example would be like, let's say if there's something on the forehead here, I'll just lightly go like this, or dab it. I also have a kneaded eraser for getting to smaller areas. I'm not going to name all the shades of the pastels that I use, but I'm sure you can find this in other places as well. They mention what are the good shades to buy, so I actually started off, you don't really need so many colors. I won't say I have the most colors, but I definitely did face-ups using much less colors than before. Like this, I didn't have for a very, very long time. So I was mostly using just like a lot of like beige kind of colors, a bit of darker, some browns. I use this bunch a lot, and like this red, and the black, and this. Okay, so this is the wet basket, the wet materials. I don't use a lot of the things here because, like, for example, I don't really use acrylic paint or flow it. I did get them to try it, but I just find myself going back to using more watercolors instead. I do use a bit of this like Tamiya and Mr. Hobby metallic paints. Yeah, I'm not sure how much you can see, but they look like this. And this particular one here is the Tamiya X22 gloss, which I actually don't use that often nowadays, because I prefer this Winsor & Newton gloss varnish. It's a bit less in your face kind of glossy. So usually I'll just take these two things out. Like my setup for doing paints is usually like this. My watercolor palette is open. This is my glass container. It's actually just a gem jar to hold water. Usually it will be filled with water. My paints, my brushes for doing paints are usually already inside here. And then the watercolors will just be sitting here. You can see black is quite empty. And if I just zoom in on the colors, because it's watercolor, which is what I love about it, you don't always have to squeeze new paint. You can just leave it in the container, and with some extra water you can always just re-wet it, and then you get the colors again. So I usually just use this corner of the things, mainly the blacks, a bit of the browns in the center here, and sometimes the red here. So I have two brushes. This one with a black stem is the one I usually use. You can see that it is not the full size of the brush, so I cut half the brush hairs off to get this. And this is this black base one is for using for watercolors. I have another one which I did the same thing too. It's a brush with hairs cut off, I use it for acrylics. I don't really mix the two medium just because acrylic does make this brush a bit more dry. So just to give you a form of comparison, this is how thin the brush is. Yeah. I'm not holding it in the way that I normally would just because I'm standing behind the camera and it's a bit awkward. But this is just to give you a sense of scale. I use water a lot and then I'll just test things on the paper as I go along. And I forgot to mention, I'm using a brand of watercolor that is from Roni. I just got them at my local art store. I didn't particularly choose a brand. So this is almost the last part of my face up process. Usually the doll head would be a lot more finished than this, like I said. Then it's just here as a prop, I guess, for scale. So I'll finish up with some gloss, which I'll use with the brush. So I was just glossing tones earlier, so this is the brush that I use. It's a size 1 brush, if that helps you. You can actually probably go a bit thinner than that. My brush is fraying a little. But anyway, it still works, so it's here. So like I said, gloss, and then makeup powder depends on how you want to use it. I usually use it after spraying my MSC for sealing. So after I'm done with the whole face up, I would do like 2 or 3 layers of full MSC and then a bit of makeup powder, which I only just started using actually. And after that, a very light and thin coat of MSC so that the powder doesn't get covered up. And after that, I'll gloss if I do use makeup powder. But I didn't used to do this, so I'll just use gloss. And then sometimes I will apply eyelashes. You can see that the ones there are actually not very suitable. I use them more for blush, and then like things like this, which are thinner, or like this, better for doll, like BJD eyelashes. I bought a eyelash curler just for my dolls, so it helps to curl the eyelashes before you glue them so that they will stick at the back of the eyelash better. And some Elmer's glue, and a pair of tweezers that I don't always use. I also usually have a toothpick, but like, yeah, just a toothpick to put some glue, apply on the eyelash. Actually, I can't remember how I do eyelashes. I don't do glue on eyelashes very often, so this is not my area of expertise, but these are just some of the things that I use to do it. Yep, so that's all I have to share with you on my face up materials and supplies. See you next time.